Enslavement. We got Pat Buchanan on the right, the case for torture. He goes on to say how wonderful it is. ABC News, torture for terrorists. Again, suspected terrorists. Now they say they're children. U.S. turns to torture to crack prisoners of war. Sydney Morning Herald. And then you read an article out of the Austin American-Statesman from back in October of 2002. Teen died after banned restraint used. Death of Mason County program, not the first for company that runs it. And it turns out they got all over the country. Do a search. They got this restraint where they choke you, twist your arms around, and kneel on your head. And it's known to close the breathing tubes. They use similar restraints on the young lady going to the Chinese death vans by choking her. And you die. Killing people. And kids have died in public schools who were, quote, restrained. And nothing happens. See, this is the torture, being institutionalized. And they also have moves, it's all the way at the Supreme Court now, courts have been agreeing that they can grab citizens and forcibly drug them, that now the court can say you're mentally ill, without a doctor even saying it. A Dr. Charles T. Sell of St. Louis, a dentist who exposed some of the Waco cover-ups, was grabbed, has been forcibly drugged for 5 years, and has been put in solitary confinement without even being charged. And the charge that they're discussing giving him, Medicaid fraud, only has 2-year sentence. But he's been held in solitary confinement for years, being forcibly drugged, and now it's all the way up to the Supreme Court.
I mean, our police in Austin, Texas, where I live, they've got lines of armored personnel carriers downtown now. They've all got these weird black uniforms and ski masks. They've got cameras and microphones hanging out of the trees. But there's crack dealers lining the streets. They won't bust them, but they'll pull you over and your family and demand to search your car in violation of the Fourth Amendment. This is turning into Nazi Germany. I don't care what anybody says. The evidence is everywhere.
Think about what these governments do. Think about the hell on earth that is being created. And then with the dehumanization, we have national British television, how wonderful eating babies are in China. We have kids, aborting babies in restrooms at the schools, nothing happening to them. Government urges under 16s to experiment with oral sex in England to keep the birth rate down. Teachers with criminal records remain in schools. Harvard professor argues for abolishing white race. They're on the news saying white people are evil, abolish the white race. What if you were saying abolish the black race? This is all offensive dehumanization. Students' pro-life t-shirt is equivalent to swastika, banning everything that's wholesome. Euro rules force church bodies to employ atheists. There's a discussion of banning the Old Testament in Europe, saying it's full of hate. Here's another headline. Has China become an ally? New York Times. Yeah, China's the big ally. They're the model country because they got death execution vans and secret executions and everything Patriot Act 2 calls for. There's a thing called bug chasers, Rolling Stone magazine. And it turns out that 25% of new HIV-infected gay men sought out the virus, says a San Francisco health official. They say they worship the virus. They want death. This is their own words. I mean, what's happened to our society? By the way, they already have eugenics of people in this country who are begging for food. I've interviewed Wesley Smith, Wall Street Journal writer. He lists the names in his book, Culture of Death, where hospitals, if you don't have any guardians, are pulling the tubes as you beg for food and water. No food order stands. Judge won't override guardian's decision. Who's the guardian? The state. It's just a totally overturning society. You've got to have your own moral compass, folks, not one given to you by the government. Doctor says he'll build U.S. suicide machines. I interviewed a big head of one of the federal government agencies on my show. He says that retarded children should be killed. Dr. Peter Singer calls them worthless mackerel. They said they should check fetuses in the womb and make you have abortions. And it's nuts. Study shows surge in psychiatric drugs for young people. Tens of millions now. Now they've approved it for toddlers. The Pentagon wants to put all our military on drugs. It's like Soma in Brave New World. They're warping your mind. They're telling you torture and death and evil and no respect for life is a good idea. Don't allow yourself to sink to this level. Do you want to have a government, a big, powerful organization running your life that's legitimized torture? In any terrorism case, under Patriot Act 2, that's any activity, even lawful activities. Do you want your children being tortured? You want to keep sliding downhill into this abyss? It's so obvious what's happening. God help us. Now we're going to look at biometrics, the cashless society control grid. You'll be satellite tracked and taxed to drive an automobile. They're talking about 65 cents a mile during peak times.